Here we go.
Thank you, Melanie. Good evening. My name is Sarah Shearer, and I'm the president of the Albany Public Library Board of Trustees, and I call our May meeting of the board to order. First, let's run through and do introductions tonight, starting with trustees.
Hi, Dr. Brenda Robinson, Vice President, Board Trustee.
I'm Tom McCarthy, Vice President for Finance.
Dr. Patara, Secretary.
Oh, Arlene actually emailed and she may not be able to make it tonight.
Sarah Dallas, Trustee.
Bridget Pryor, Trustee.
Jerry Gauze, Trustee.
John Smith, Board Treasurer.
Melanie Metzger, Interim Director.
Adam Stump, Director of Finance.
And we're also joined by Robert Schofield, our attorney.
And now we're sitting there waiting for Becky to say something, but Becky's not here anymore.
Yeah.
No worries.
And we're also joined by Lex Sagat of the Friends and Foundation of the Albany Public Library this evening.
Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, I got to switch my screen to gallery view so I can see everyone. So I believe our first item is public comment.
Public comments are listed in board docs. Do you want me to read those out loud?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay. So we received, let me share my screen so you can see it.
And just the gist is fine if they're longer.
And this is a public comment from Raymond Dansdrow, writing to express my extreme disappointment with the library's sudden retreat from a more rational masking policy and into the measure of March 2020 for 2 years. I've been unable to bring my children to the library because of the strict mask mandate. They are too young to wear masks consistently for long. And for one great month, I was able to let them have the library experience they should have. Now that is gone. And he just, continues to go on explaining his rationale behind his disappointment, and that he feels that we aren't following the science, that we're the only organization outside of the medical industry that is requiring or mandating masks in their facilities. Even the school district recommends masking but does not require it. And he, after 2 years, if the library still refuses to serve the people of Albany without placing onerous pandemic restrictions on them, then it is time for people to be allowed to opt out. Let me opt out of paying my library tax. Let me stop paying to support a library that I can't take my children to. For 2 years, I've picked up books in libraries that are empty, shelves, and ghost towns. If this is to continue, then the libraries are not serving their purpose and do not deserve our support. And additionally, this other item on board docs is just some of the responses from when we did mention on our social media about the return to the mask mandate. These are without names attached. But we did receive a couple pros. Thank you, APL. Thank you. And several cons. You've got to be kidding me, bringing the masks back. Fauci says the pandemic is over, seems to be the repeating sentiment on our social media. And other than that, there were no public comments. What to do? That one. So we do state that we do accept public comment via email or by phone. So that is public comment at albanypubliclibrary.org, or by phone, you can leave a message 518-290-6905. That is a voicemail that you can leave. We ask that you leave your name and your city of Albany residence.
Thank you, Melanie. And thank you to those who send in public comment. We really appreciate hearing from Albany residents, and public comment is always welcome. So thank you. Next, we have a presentation by Lex, the Executive Director of the Friends and Foundation of APL. Lex?
Hi, thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for giving me some time today. This is my first annual presentation since I think 2019, but maybe 2020. I'm not 100% certain, but Scott had just gotten us into the idea of an annual presentation to the trustees, and that got interrupted by the pandemic, and it's something I hope we get back to. So I'm gonna keep it quick today. And I can answer questions if anybody wants to email me after. My email is lex@ffapl.org, and I will put that in the chat later if anybody has questions about any points. So the Friends and Foundation raised approximately $68,000 in 2021. That was less than we've made in the last 5 years, but our spending was a normal spending. We spent $93,000. Of that $93,000, $25,000 went directly onto library programs, and $3,500 went to Friends programs. You should all have a little brochure that you received in your board packet, and that explains a little bit about the history of the Friends and Foundation and our merger, and what are the Friends programs that we continue to present. So the highlights of our 2021 programming were Keep Albany Connected, expanding Wi-Fi, the TUI Fellowship, which was a paid internship for 2 Black Albany Information Science students, and the Branching Out Mural and Performance Program. Our highlights for this year are expanding Keep Albany Connected with the APL, AHA, Albany Housing Wi-Fi expansion, getting our book sales at the Delaware Shed into a really good flow with hiring our first staff member for book sales, and Library Giving Day, which already happened, and that's a big highlight for us this year. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about all of those things, and if anybody has further questions, you can email me. So Keep Albany Connected started in 2020 during the pandemic. Expanding the Wi-Fi access to outdoor areas of the library was the first phase. It's a huge priority for us. We spent $8,000 in 2021 to provide Wi-Fi access points. And then in 2021, we received a very large grant, double the size of our annual budget, $130,000, to expand the library's Wi-Fi service at Albany Housing. So the library has a pilot program that's at 4 outdoor locations at Albany Housing. We're going to add 10 more locations, or the Albany Housing is going to add 10 more locations paid for by the FFAPL to provide Wi-Fi at 14 locations indoors and out. And there is a press conference, everybody, tomorrow at 10 a.m., which will announce this program. It's big news for Albany, big news for the library, and big news for the FFAPL. So stay tuned for 10 a.m. tomorrow. The 2021 expenses were only $8,000, but there will be much larger expenses this year. The TUI Library Equity Fellowship is next. So that, I'm sure you've all heard of it. It provides a paid internship for 2 current information science students at the University of Albany, in order to try to attract and retain Black professional staff at the Albany Public Library. The program has been fine-tuned year after year. We're now in our 2nd year of the program. Last year, the FFAPL received our second $26,000 grant from the Carl E. Tui Foundation, and that will fund the 2nd and 3rd year of the program. So it's now funded through 2023. So we spent $16,000 in 2021 and expect to spend that much this year. So our last highlight from last year is Branching Out. Branching Out was actually 2 interrelated projects. There was a live performance series and a mural painting workshop, and an exhibition of that mural. And hopefully some of you saw the events with the mural as it traveled around to 3 different branches with outdoor performances. And then it left and went to Schenectady Public Library and branched out further to Cohoes and Troy Public Libraries. So tying tying many libraries together. So that was made possible with a grant from the American Library Association and with enthusiastic support from Youth FX and a grant from the Center for Law and Justice for the mural. The FFAPL did not provide funding for it. We wrote the grant applications and provided matching funds for the Center for Law and Justice grant of $3,360. So, and just so everybody knows, Tor Loney, the librarian from that, and Rebecca are going to be going to the American Library Association with Jade Warwick, one of the librarians on that project, to present at the ALA to sort of model this as a nationally interesting program. So a quick note on the brochure for anybody who didn't see my last presentation. The way the FFAPL works is that we have an annual appeal that solicits funds from patrons and supporters, and then we distribute 85% of those annual appeal funds directly to support library programs. We're very excited that the library took part in Library Giving Day this year. So Library Giving Day is the Wednesday of National Library Week in April. And so that will help get our annual appeal structured so that it goes from Giving Day to Giving Day. It just goes from Giving Tuesday, the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, until the Wednesday of National Library Week. And that is the season that we are then soliciting donations from our patrons. So this year at Library Giving Day, we also added a new fund for this year, which is our scholarship fund. That is an endowment fund. We're working to raise $30,000 for that endowment fund, and that will be a professional development support alongside the TUI Fellowship Scholarship. And lastly, about this year, the future of how we work. So the other thing for all trustees to know, so the most important fundraiser for the Friends and Foundation is Literary Legends. It's an annual gala that celebrates a local writer. It travels to a different branch every year. Last year's gala was at Pine Hills. We celebrated Lydia Davis and Eugene Mirabelli, and the library honored the Cornell Cooperative Extension. We raised $31,000. The funds from Literary Legends provide the general operating support for the foundation. It also pays for art at APL and provides matching funds for grants that we provide. So that is about it. I have some other expenses about programs. I have a list of the funded programs that we paid for from the Friends and Foundation, but I'm happy to keep it short and answer questions or tell you what are the programs from last year if anybody wants to know. Tell me, Sarah, if you're in there, how much detail you want.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, let me know how much detail, if that's sufficient, and I can just answer any questions at this point, or if anybody wants to hear.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that. If any trustees had questions, I know you and I spoke a couple weeks ago, Lex, and I thought the agenda was going to be tight tonight. I do think we have time for questions. It's not a problem at all. Donna?
Hi, thanks. Not a question, just applause and kudos to FFAPL for everything that you've done and all that you do. It's been really such a joy to watch this this organization evolve and grow into something so much bigger and better than just seeing the synergy between the Friends and the Foundation coming together at last, and everything that you're accomplishing is really wonderful. So thank you. It's wonderful to see you tonight, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, amazing work, Lex. This was really, really great news all around.
Excellent. Okay, well then I will see you guys next year, but I hope that some of you will come to the gala October 1st at Delaware. We're making it a little bit earlier so that we can enjoy the outdoor air. And yeah. And the Friends will be at the book sale behind Delaware every Tuesday starting on June 28th. So hopefully see some of you behind Delaware.
Thank you, Lex. Our next item on our agenda is consent agenda. However, we actually won't need a consent agenda tonight. We only have one item that needs approval, the operating check register. There was a little slight error with the minutes. The wrong month was attached. So we will be able to approve our April board meeting minutes next month. Not a problem. But if somebody would like to make a motion to adopt the operating check register, that would be appreciated.
I move to adopt the operating check register.
Thank you, Donna. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Dr. Robinson, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Melanie, would you like us to voice vote?
Yes, please.
Um,
If we can just go down the roll call list.
okay, aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda are our financial report by Adam and Sean.
Good evening. The reports this month cover March 2022, which is 75% of the way through our 21-22 fiscal year. The overall expenditures as of 3/31 represent 74% of our modified budget. Payroll and the related costs are continuing to trend under budget, and the occupancy costs are continuing to trend over budget. The overall revenue as of 3/31 represents 77% of our modified budget. The federal grants and aid line saw a significant increase during March. There was no activity in the capital fund account during March related, or there was activity in the capital fund account during March related to the Washington Ave mechanical room upgrades. And we're continuing to work with KeyBank in order to determine the best way to structure our bank accounts in order to minimize bank fees. I'll let Adam fill it in.
Okay, thank you, Sean. So we had applied for a FEMA grant in 2020 in an effort to obtain reimbursement for much of the PPE we had to purchase that year. Our application was successful and we received almost $58,000 in March as a result, which can be seen in the federal grants and aid revenue line. The transfer of funds from our general account into our merchant account is related to our effort to minimize bank fees. And in all likelihood, we will end the fiscal year having to utilize a much smaller portion of our fund balance than was budgeted for. And the primary reason for this is the significant payroll cost savings we're seeing due to vacancies going unfilled and ongoing resignations. So if anyone has any questions on the reports, we'll be happy to field those now. Thanks.
Do any trustees have any questions for Sean or Adam? Okay, thank you, Sean and Adam. Next portion of the agenda are committee and liaison reports. First is the trustees reporting out and upcoming events. If anybody has anything they would like to share.
I attended the Brothers exhibit at the Arbor Hill Community Center, I believe on the 28th. And it was very, it was near to my heart because my dad was a brother. And so it was good to see all the instrumental and dynamic men that started the group, like Leon Van Dyke and Earl Thorpe, so, and Purcell, who was also instrumental as well as his brother. So it was very well done, and the exhibit, it was very well attended too. So it was It was very nice. And especially for them to get the recognition that they so deserved.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear it went well and it was well attended. I have heard good things.
And I would just like to echo what Bridget just mentioned. The exhibit was very nice, and I do agree. It's always good to see them get that recognition. And I talk to Mr. Thorpe sometimes, and it's just really great to hear what they have to say and really learn about different things that they have done for us. So very nice.
Just a quick love letter to libraries on my part. I had a 5-hour airplane delay in Colony, and the weather wasn't very good. And so we decided that we would spend our time at the William K. Sanford Library. And it was exactly what we needed. And I ended up coming home with about 17 books that I had to bring with me on the airplane. But the library is place concept is very important. It's a place to be.
Any other trustees? Just give everyone a minute. All right, I believe our first report is from the Nominating Committee. Since Arlene isn't here tonight, would someone else on the Nominating Committee like to take us through that?
Sure. I'm not sure, Oh, there you are. Okay. Dr. Robinson, are you going to go through it?
You can go ahead and do what I'm doing from my phone. I got kicked out and now I'm on my.
Okay. I was like, wait, where'd she go? And then now you're back. Okay. So we had the nominating committee met on Thursday, April 14th, and discussed just the logistics of the candidate forum, getting together the roles and responsibilities, and working with Melanie and her team on how that was all going to flow. Updating the script from the one that we used back in 2020. And it was a very productive meeting, short and to the point, and we got a lot done. And I think the forum went very well as a result, and especially with all of this having to be done remotely, and with Dr. Robinson on vacation, I was really, we got it all done. So that was great.
Yes, I also would like to add that the forum was well attended and it went very well. I'm very pleased at the flow and the outcome and the participation. And I also like to thank the trustees who also attended.
Thank you. Do any trustees have any questions for the nominating committee? All right, thank you. The next committee report is the Ad Hoc Strategic Plan Committee, which I can take us through. It was a brief meeting. We met as a committee to interview individuals who responded to our RFP for a strategic plan consultant. And the committee did actually make a recommendation. The committee recommends awarding the proposal, the position to Mary Ellen Pichet. But we can discuss this during executive session, but the committee does make that recommendation. And that was our meeting. As I said, we obviously discuss in executive session, but does anybody have any other questions? All right. The next report is the UHLS report. However, Arlene is not here tonight, but her minutes have been included in the packet. And the last committee that met is the Executive Committee, which I can also take us through. The Executive Committee met last night to interview candidates for the board clerk position. And we did not make a recommendation at our meeting last night, but we're happy to go through and catch the board up on our discussions and our deliberation in executive session tonight. Any questions on that? And I believe our next item on the agenda is the Executive Director report.
Bring that up. So going through my executive summary, we start off with our COVID-19 update. We did have 5 staff members test positive for COVID in April. And with the uptick in cases in the region, this was not a surprise, but we do see this as an additional strain on our frontline staff in terms of scheduling. It's been very close with potential closing of branches because we've had multiple people out on multiple days. And it's not only individuals themselves who are sick, but their family members that they care for are getting sick as well. The county highly recommended shifting back to masking indoors, although they did not go as far as requiring it. We are currently following our COSP, our continuation of services plan that is in place that does state that masking is required in all APL buildings as long as the county is in a high designation. So we did reinstitute the mask requirement in our buildings. I know we have that item for discussion later on. Services and programs, we in April saw the return to in-person programming and we were so happy about it. And both that and our meeting room use. So it's been a slow start, but they're especially with the uptick in the COVID transmission. But the public have been very happy with library services. I also attended the Brothers event, which was absolutely phenomenal. I also was able to attend that same week the Stephen Winters bench dedication at our Howe branch. And it really was a testament to the library to show how many people came up to me afterwards and were so thankful of the return of library programs that we were able to do. And on that day, it was also our first story time in the library. We haven't done any story times in so long in person, and it was the first one. And I walked downstairs to handle a situation, and there was singing and dancing and reading and little voices, and it just made it feel like a library again. So it was wonderful. Operations, we did experience some plumbing issues at our Howe branch, which we were able to trace back to the overstuffing of toilets with paper towels. We're currently discussing our options that we can take to alleviate that situation. The Washington Avenue Auditorium AV upgrade unfortunately hit a snag as a vital piece of the equipment arrived non-functional and a new piece had to be ordered. That pushed back the usage of the AV system until late May because the piece isn't going to arrive until then. We were really hoping to have that for the board candidate session, but we made do. We were able to make it work. And then for administration, we unfortunately did see the resignation of our brand new HR director as she took a more lucrative position, which we do not fault her for. It was a wonderful opportunity. We have begun the search for that replacement, and we actually started interviews today. So we're hoping to have the interviews finalized by the end of the week. Our community services and support specialist, essentially our social work position, also has resigned. That position, we are waiting until we have the installation of the new executive director because that position was always in a state of flux and we want to have the new director in place to have a better idea of the vision that they want to see that position take. And if there's any additional, what roles and responsibilities we want that person to focus on. And as people are aware, we also have 2L2 positions open at the moment. Those are our branch manager positions. Jim Davies left, and also Torloni will be leaving at the end of the month from our Howe branch. Statistics were a bit exciting this month. I was actually had fun with the statistics. Our book circulation and juvenile material circulations were both up to pre-pandemic levels at both Arbor Hill, West Hill, and our Bach branches. So that was quite exciting. Additionally, overall circulation was above pre-pandemic numbers at our Bach location. So this is even better than we were before the pandemic. This is especially noteworthy as door counts at both locations and our circulation transactions are down. So our power users are definitely returning with full power to the library because our circulation numbers are up. During the pandemic, e-materials dominated our circulation, accounting for almost 50% of total circulation. We're now seeing that trend back down to about about 25% of our total circulation. It's still above pre-pandemic levels, but we're seeing that return to the physical checkouts. And throughout the pandemic, we did hear a lot of people were switching over to e-material usage anyway. So it will be interesting over the next year to see how that number does resolve itself. On a more somber note, our incident reports have also returned to pre-pandemic numbers. And as I mentioned, this is actually especially concerning because while the numbers are at pre-pandemic levels, our door count numbers are about half. So when you take that into consideration, it's almost as if our incidents are double in relation to how many people are walking through our door. So that's very concerning to us. We're seeing that, and it's, you know, I kind of addressed that in the safety note as well, that we're noticing more incidents involving mental health concerns, that people are just in mental health crisis and they're breaking during their visits to the library. While not always in violent nature, the overall sense is that people are definitely more reactive to the smallest of inconveniences. The masking has definitely, we've seen an uptick in people being very angry at being asked to wear a mask in the library. And I do have to note that we did have one staff member that was assaulted by somebody by a patron. So this is something that we not only are taking seriously internally, but we started discussion with some community partners to see how we can work together to address the situation, because this is much larger than just the library itself. And I've even started a discussion with all the directors in Upper Hudson to see if we can kind of combat this problem. As I mentioned, it takes a village, and I think we're going to take that approach to this problem because it is something that is bigger than Albany Public Library. And don't mean to end on a somber note, but that's where I end. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them.
Given the difficulties with the return to the mask mandate, are there any recommendations for action that we could take as a board to help the staff?
Well, that is one of the topics that we're going to be discussing later when we do discuss the pandemic operation plan, and this that's where the state of emergency plan is there. We've discussed at length with the administration staff and with some of the frontline staff, and our suggestion is going to be to rescind the state of emergency as it oversees for the library and return to quote unquote normal as they are now services. You know, we can require, or we can recommend the mask mandate, or not mandate, I'm sorry, recommend mask wearing while in levels of high. But if we were to follow the cost, we're supposed to be trekking back and eliminating or restricting in-person programming. Again, we're supposed to be restricting or eliminating the meeting room use and the study room use as part of our cost. And we just don't see that as a viable option at this point. We've learned a lot throughout the pandemic and what services we can and cannot provide. And we feel that we can provide services in a safe manner and have, if we're allowed the flexibility to adjust as needed rather than on a global all or nothing standpoint. So that is our recommendation.
Got it. Didn't mean to jump the gun. I don't want our clerks getting assaulted ever.
Correct. Either do we. This has been the number one issue with our staff right now. And this was, before everything started seeing the uptick, this was going to be our recommendation anyway. And we just unfortunately got caught in the middle of an uptick of the transmissions rate again. So we're trying to balance it. Our staff is probably going to continue to mask when they feel most comfortable doing so. And I know a lot of patrons have as well. It's, I think there's more patrons who do mask than who aren't masking. We were considering at one point taking down the plexiglass barriers, but we've held off on that because that's not necessarily tied to any pandemic operation plan. That's something that we can just, continue using as we see the need to. But the big one is there was a nice forward momentum going with programming and getting people back into the library. And we do see, regionally and nationally, it's very few places are restricting services. And we just feel the odd duck out right now if we were to restrict services again with everybody else moving forward.
Any other questions for Melanie? Thank you, Melanie.
You're welcome.
So I believe now we are going into unfinished business where we have a couple items. First is the behavior policy. Last month we sent it back to be a little wordsmithed. Would somebody like to take us through that?
Melanie, do you want to do that? Or do you want me to do it?
You're the chair, so you can, if you're comfortable doing it, it should be.
I just love your voice though. Let's see, can you bring it up on the screen, please? I think this is a lot cleaner than it was last week or last month. It had gone to the attorney and we worked out some of the concerns regarding gambling, and we've changed it to illegal gambling, which would cover it. We thank Bob and Donna for catching the way we had originally written about people's hygiene. We've corrected that. As we had discussed. And the other thing that we talked about was splitting into two bullets the use or distributing alcohol or illegal non-prescription drugs, because we talked about sometimes people could be under the influence of prescribed drugs. And I think this has cleared it up where we're talking about the disruption of service and use rather than the alcohol or drugs. And there was one more we were going to look at that wasn't included. We cleaned up the eating and drinking. We cleaned up the hygiene. We cleaned up the tobacco use. And while we were reviewing it, one of the best grammarians, is that a word, on the board is Donna. And when she looked at it with a good set of eyes, she felt, and we didn't put it in, but we wanted to ask people's opinions on it, and we can put it in because it's very, very simple language. We talked about bare feet or without a shirt, but Donna thought that perhaps pants or being properly attired was something that needed to be put in. But we didn't talk about it as a group last week, but I just wanted to bring that up to you.
The phrase, I added it as a note in board docs. So the previous statement said entering or using the library in bare feet or without a shirt. And we would just like to amend that to say entering the library without clothing, which must include shoes and a shirt. Just gives a little bit more emphasis to full clothing.
Donna, thank you. Every time I looked at it, I never thought that somebody would walk in without coverage. Let's put it that way.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, we actually did have somebody attempt it one day, just with, I think, just boxer shorts on. And we were able to and they kind of like, well, it says without a shirt or shoes, I got those on, but we're like, could you? And they were just testing the waters, and we were able to get them to fully clothe after that. But
so Brigitte, did I forget anything? And Jarre, did I forget anything? Melanie, did I forget anything?
No, I think you covered it, and yes, that was excellent. Suggestion about clothing. You have to be very specific people. Wear clothes.
And Bob, you've looked at it also, and did you spot anything that could potentially be interpreted not in our intention?
Honestly, I haven't looked at it again, Sarah, but we've looked at it so many times that I can't imagine we've missed anything at this point.
So having all of that, and Bob, I hope you feel better. May we have a motion or a second to approve this policy?
Did the committee recommend approval or make a motion in committee to adopt this?
We would probably need a full first and second because of the addition of the one additional edit.
Good point. I guess, Sarah, it's over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. Would somebody like to make a motion to adopt the behavior policy as amended?
I'll make a
So
motion
moved.
to adopt the behavior.
Brigitte makes the motion. And then did I hear Jenna?
Yep.
So Jenna with a second. Any further discussion on the motion? We did discuss this policy at length, and the changes, as Sarah explained them, were clear to me. So if there's no further discussion, we can do a roll call. So all in favor, Melanie, I say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 I'm not sure what the order is. I think I'm last, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Jarre, did you vote?
Yes, she did.
Oh, thank you.
And
you just
go on. I was just going to say, I want to thank the committee for all of their work. There was a lot of discussion on it, and I thank the board for the full discussion last week. And this is good for at least another year. So thank you all for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, under unfinished business, Bob, are you able to walk us through open meetings law?
I can walk you through where things stand now.
Yeah.
I don't think we're quite ready to pass a resolution. But we can talk about what we need to do to get ready to do that when you're ready.
Yeah, I was just hoping there was some additional guidance given
Yeah.
this past month.
Yeah.
Sure, any updates you have would be great.
So Committee on Open Government did issue a Q&A, so there's some information out there. One of the things that's become very clear about the law is that the purposes for which a person can utilize video conferencing is going to be narrowly tailored. And it is going to only be for the extraordinary circumstances that are actually set forth in the new amendments. Those extraordinary circumstances are still a little bit unclear, but they include a disability, an illness, a caregiving responsibility, and then significant or unexpected factors or events which preclude a physical presence. So presumably, if you were away from Albany on business and needed a video conference in, that could potentially be okay. But if you were away on a vacation, perhaps doesn't fit the definition. So these are things that we're going to have to nail down in the resolution that you all approve. The other thing is the one thing that I didn't catch, or I'm not sure if I had caught it and just didn't mention to you, or hadn't caught it yet. But in order to pass the resolution, you have to schedule a public hearing. So if, for example, we want to do this at the June meeting, we're going to have to notice a public meeting in advance of that meeting. We could call the public hearing at 5:45. We'll need to open, be present, let the public come and speak, see if we get any comments on the proposed resolution that we want to pass. And then only after we've had that public hearing, we'll be able to actually pass the library resolution that's necessary to adopt this. I do have a draft of that resolution that I started working through that I can circulate to folks. I have every reason to think, with the numbers on the trajectory that they're on, that the governor will continue to extend the state of emergency like she did last month. And that as long as that's in place, we're sort of in a placeholder that we can continue to deal with this the way we're dealing with it. But when that goes away, we're going to have to decide whether we want to put this in place or not. It is not as helpful as the status that you have now is. It really is just one of those scenarios where somebody can't join for some reason. What we essentially have gotten away from is the idea that every location where a person is becomes a public meeting. One of the other things that's a little bit interesting is the trustee, it appears, will be able to participate and vote. So says the Committee on Open Government's interpretation, but it doesn't look like they'll count towards quorum. So we won't be able to use this to get the 5 people in the room to actually conduct business. And that, that could limit its effectiveness.
Thank you. I see 2 hands, but before I start calling, I just follow-up question. Maybe this will answer some questions. So I've kind of lost track of it. As everything currently stands, how much longer do we have under the current regulations? Is it the EO expiring May 15th, or do we have longer under the law that was passed? We have that grace period.
You had the 60-day grace period that's going to be expiring shortly thereafter. I mean, it's 60 days isn't going to give you much, if anything, at all.
Okay,
I don't remember, the budget was passed on the 3rd or 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so June 3rd or 4th. I don't think
Okay,
it gets you to your June meeting.
Okay, so it would cover any other meetings we have in May.
Yes, but like I said, I would be shocked at this point if the governor doesn't extend that EO. The numbers are worse than they were last month, and she did it last month.
Okay. Jenna?
So my first question is, do we have to hold that forum every time we want someone to be able? Okay.
Just before we pass the resolution.
Okay. And then my second question is, let's say you have a health issue that precludes you from being in a room with a bunch of people. Do you have to attend a forum in person in order to then have the ability to,
no.
okay.
It's a public hearing, Joanna. It's just we have to, before we pass a resolution, the board has to call a public hearing so people can come and say, this is a great idea, this is a bad idea. You know,
Okay.
there's a few circumstances in the law where the public has to be given an opportunity to weigh in before the board can act. This is one of those.
For the public hearing, though, does it require a quorum of the board to be in attendance, or who is running the hearing?
No, the board should call the meeting to order. You know, it'll be the then board president and, you know, staff, but the whole board does not need to be there if it doesn't want to be. It would be good form to be there. And so that's why I would suggest you call it 15 minutes before a meeting starts.
Okay.
So everybody's going to be there anyway.
But it has to be done in person?
The public hearing needs to be done in person.
Okay, so that would be, you're saying if we were going to have an in-person meeting, have the forum before the meeting?
No, the board doesn't have to physically be present at that public hearing. It just, that the public hearing, as far as I know, needs to be in person. I don't,
Okay.
in other words, I don't think the exceptions that exist right now for an open meeting would affect a public hearing. I can look at that. That's an interesting question that I hadn't thought about.
Sarah?
Thank you for asking that. I was wondering that also. And if we do pass a resolution to allow this to happen, it's only good for 2 years because this sunsets in 2 years.
Yeah,
Let's
we'll
say-
see what they do with that, right? I mean, if they extend it, then it would be good for as long as the extension is.
And we have to have the resolution by June 6th or whatever it is. But we can keep on pushing it out as long as the executive order is in place that allows
That's how
remote
we
meetings.
understand the executive orders function right now. You don't have to do this at all. You know, I mean, I think some bodies will say this isn't really worth the squeeze and they won't do it. But if you want to do it, you'll need to do it before you make use of it in the future.
Okay, but there's no time that we have to do it by. It could be within the 2 years.
You could decide to give it a whirl without it for a little while and then decide to do it or what have you.
Okay.
It's not going to give you anything like this, you know.
Oh, no, the quorum has to be
Physically
face to
present.
face. So there goes all of the snow emergencies. We would just have to cancel. Thank you. I think it was confusing and you've helped a lot. Thanks, Bob.
I think it's still a little confusing, unfortunately. I appreciate that, but I don't think we've solved it. The Coog Q&A is helpful, though.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So at this point, I'd be interested in hearing trustee thoughts on this. If this is something that we'd like to consider pursuing. We don't have to do this. We don't have to do this right away. We can continue to watch the executive orders. Does anybody have any preferences or thoughts on it?
Sounds pretty useless.
Well, I mean, the one example that it would be helpful with is if you had a trustee who couldn't physically be at a meeting because they couldn't go. This would allow them to participate from home while that limitation is there. And that would be its greatest value, if you will. So if you had people that were at a high risk in these circumstances, but the EOs weren't in effect, that could potentially give them that opportunity.
Sarah, is that a new hand raise or from the last question?
It's a new hand raised. I would suggest going forward with this, not that we would have to use it, but let's say there's a childcare issue. I think that's one thing, or an emergency business meeting. Part of the strength, I think, of this board and the individuals on the board is the conversations we have. And I would I think having somebody able to participate in the conversation is important as we move forward, and continuity.
Tom?
To me, it is like a why not just do it so you have it if you need it. But I would only want to do it if we can be assured that we have technology that will allow it to run smoothly. I like, it's really not worth it if the tech issues are gonna make our meetings stilted. And also, I would also be interested in having some way of making sure that people are using it properly, like having the minutes reflect their reason for being virtual or whatever, just to ensure that, you know, we are actually using it for proper purposes under the law, if anyone ever asks.
Donna?
Hi, thanks. I am on the same page as Tom in terms of a why not. There are so many things that could potentially happen, and it seems to be an inclusivity tool. There may be many reasons why a trustee, either a current trustee or a future trustee, might not be able to attend meetings in person, either as a one-off or on an ongoing basis. And I would like to make, that future pool of trustees as broad as possible. And, again, there might be a lot of reasons why somebody couldn't attend in person.
Thank you. Would other trustees like to weigh in on this?
Also on the mindset of why not, and it gives another option to be able to include everyone who maybe for whatever reason can't make it. They're still able to participate. So I think that I also echo what everyone else has said. So as long as everyone is able to participate and we have those voices and their voices are heard, so give them every opportunity to be able to, again, be included.
I also agree with all the comments that were made. And I think these last couple of years shows how beneficial an alternative means of communication is. And, the why not piece, and just being able to have that option, I think certainly would be a benefit to this board rather than something negative. So I agree with the other trustees.
I agree with everyone as well. I guess my question would be, in terms of next steps, does it make sense to schedule a hearing for June prior to our June meeting, or wait and see what happens with the executive orders and hold off on holding a hearing until we actually may need to utilize this? Bob, do you have any thoughts on that, on timing wise, what makes more sense?
What we could do is we could look at it in June. I can have a draft resolution circulated. Everybody could look at it. We could ask questions. And then, we could actually schedule it for the July annual meeting. It's completely up to the board. I don't think this is going to get you a whole lot that's going to be helpful between now and then. So I think it's one of those things that it's better to spend some time looking at and thinking about, asking any questions, etc. I don't think there's any urgency to it.
Okay, that makes sense to me, if that's okay with everyone else, reviewing a resolution at our June board meeting.
Yeah, I think that not being able to gain quorum from it makes it a little complex, because essentially what it would, I'm just thinking about, like, I probably would be someone who, I'm definitely covered under this. But if I am sitting in a room virtual and there are 7 people physically in the room, are you going to be able to see me and hear me? I think there's some kinks to work out.
I mean, you have to be able to see and hear the person. They've got to be able to fully participate, and the public has to be able to fully observe them. There isn't the streaming requirement any longer, but there is still an obligation that it be recorded and available on the website within 5 days. And then the meetings that get recorded for that purpose have to be maintained for 5 years. So that's potentially a lot of meetings too. And that it does, the board was recording meetings previous to us having the obligation to stream them. So if you're going to do that anyway, maybe it's not a big deal, but this now puts an obligation on you to record and maintain for 5 years every one of these meetings that are affected by the video conferencing.
Sarah?
Melanie, I guess this is a question for you and your webmaster. Do we have the storage space to have 12 meetings times 5 years up somewhere in the cloud before we move forward on this?
So right now, all of our meetings are on YouTube and they're stored there. And I think for the time being, we have unlimited storage. I'll have to confirm that. So that shouldn't be an issue. We've been doing that for years anyway. As Bob mentioned, all of our meetings have been recorded even prior to the pandemic, and we had them up. So we don't see that as a problem. And potentially with the new, we haven't gotten to test it out yet, but with a new setup at Washington Avenue, the intent is that it would allow for the meetings to go much smoother. We would be able to have potentially the 1 or 2 individuals who are virtual. We're hoping it's not more than 2 during any given meeting, would be able to either be set up on a laptop and facing out towards the audience, or projected onto the screen. And then the setup in the room is such that all audio would be picked up. So any audio coming from that laptop would be picked up as well. So the intent is that we would be able to do this technology wise. We just haven't had a chance to test it out fully yet.
Does anybody else have anything to add before we move to our next item? All right. Last item under unfinished business was, I just wanted to give a brief update, public facing on the executive director search. I just wanted to let the public know that we have conducted interviews with candidates, and the process is moving forward. And that is our update at this time, but I just wanted to make that update. Moving on to new business, we have our New York State Annual Report.
Okay, so by law, we have to provide this annual report to New York State every year. And by law, it has to be approved by the board. So before it gets fully accepted by Department or Division of Library Development, it has, it's a long, you probably do not want me going through it page by page. It is a very long document, but that we did post it, for the draft and for the final. So it would give you the opportunity to look through it. It's a standard form. We do this every year. It goes through a series of checks. So it has gone through the series of checks and has been approved by Upper Hudson. If you go to the very last page, there's, when did your board approve it? And we have to have that date submitted to the state. That is what this meeting would be for. It's a fun document. Sarah.
Having lived through this on so many libraries, I think your staff did a fabulous job, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the annual report as shown to us as of today's date of the board approving it.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there a second? Donna, I see your hand.
I'll
Thank
second.
you. Any further discussion on the motion? Does anybody have any questions before we vote on this? All right, seeing none, let's do a roll call. I vote aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. This closes out. This is usually a multi-month process, so this is always a good thing. Thank you very much.
Our next item under new business is the state of emergency.
So as I mentioned before, we have been operating under our state of emergency policy that allows us to shift our services. And so we shifted our services to fall under the pandemic operation plan and the continuation of services plan. So this would just have you guys allow us to come out of the board sanctioned state of emergency to return to, I hate the word new normal, but the regular operating procedures where we can be more flexible as needed as the situation arises.
They're both invested.
So this would essentially put the pandemic operation plan and continuation of services plan in our back pocket should we need to ever come out and have to bring them forward facing again. But it would allow us to, we can still recommend masking. So this would allow us to, utilize that language that we highly recommend masking during this time. Services will continue on a capacity basis. So obviously, if we have all of our staff out on a given day because have been afflicted with COVID, we have the potential that we might have to shut down a branch, but that would have been the same thing we would have done should the flu had hit the staff all at once. Or if there was a plumbing emergency where we had to close down the branch, or if a performer called out sick and we had to cancel a program because the performer called out. It would just allow us to continue our services, to provide, to continue to slowly ramp up our services as we have the capacity to do so, and then scale back when the need arises.
Well, are you asking us to remove the state of emergency policy as a existing policy in its
Not as an existing policy. You had voted at the beginning of the pandemic to go into state of emergency to allow us to modify our plan. So I'm just asking to come out of that state of emergency that is board approved.
Do you need a motion? I so make that motion with the words that you used, Melanie.
Is there a second? Donna, is that your hand? A question or second?
It's a question. Does this by default assume that we go back to recommending masking versus requiring masking?
Yeah.
Are they kind of rolled into the both? They're both rolled in? Okay.
Because the required of masking was part of the continuation of services plan.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Would somebody like to make a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Jenna. Any further discussion or questions on the motion before we vote? Okay. We can utilize a roll call again. I vote aye.
Yes.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody. That is going to be extremely helpful and give a lot of us a little ease moving forward. We really didn't want to scale back programming again. So this is allows us a little bit, like I said, allows us more flexibility and we can adjust as needed now.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Before our next item of new business, we can move into executive session to discuss appointments and employment and individuals. If somebody would like to move us into executive session.
Make a motion to.
I heard Tom and I heard Dr. Robinson. Was that you?
Yes.
Dr. Robinson makes the motion and Tom seconds. Any further discussion on the motion to enter executive session? Seeing none, all in favor, roll call, aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, sorry, Jenna.
No worries.
Had them both.
Aye.
Did we hear Brigitte, Javre, and Donna?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. And
Cute, Melanie.
Yeah, she is. I told Jenna, see, he popped on too. Okay, let me send you guys into executive session and I will be out here if you need me.
I think, is it okay if Sean and Adam are dismissed?
Yes, Sean and Adam, you guys are dismissed for the evening. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Okay, Sarah and Brenda, it appears that you guys have not clicked to join yet.
I got kicked out.
Does it give you an option? I sent you back in.
No.
It's showing I have you assigned to the room. There should be a button to click to join the room.
I think because my computer over here is stuck, so I'm on my phone. Let me see. My computer just went wackadoo. I have to get back on my phone. Try sending me now because the computer is just, Zoom is not responding on my computer. Because I'm on my phone. Oh, here goes.
Hello. Are we all coming back?
We're coming back.
The magic number we're looking for is 10 participants,
Yep, it looks.
8 trustees, Bob and Melanie. I see 9.
Like Sarah Dallas is the last one, but hers should pop
There
her
she
in
is.
soon. Yep.
Oh, Sarah Dallas motioned to come out of executive session and Donna seconded, and the motion was unanimous.
Okay.
Our last item under new business is to accept a proposal from a strategic plan consultant. If somebody would like to make that motion.
I make the motion to accept.
It's Dr. Robinson.
I make a motion to accept the strategic plan proposal.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Brigitte? Thank you. Any further discussion on accepting the proposal of Mary Ellen Pichet as our strategic plan consultant? Seeing no further conversation, let's go to a roll call vote. All in favor? Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Tom and Brigitte?
Aye. Aye.
Did I get Tom?
Yeah, I said aye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're super quick. We're becoming professionals at this.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Motion carries unanimously. Mary Ellen is our new strategic plan consultant, and I will circle back with her. Just write myself a note. Melanie, did you say we have to go over the POP tonight?
No, because you guys actually
are out of state of emergency.
Yep. So that will be removed from future agendas in case, unless we are so moved to add it back in.
Got it.
So thank you, everybody. 2 years of it. You did good. Thank you.
Well, the staff has done amazing. So
yes, they have.
With that, I believe we're looking for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Is there any further public comment?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, thank you. This is a full board meeting. Second public comment. Thank you.
There are no additional public comments.
I second
the
motion to adjourn.
Who made the motion?
I made the motion.
Brigitte. And is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to adjourn? Seeing none, roll call vote. All in favor, aye.
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 Jare, did you get it?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Good to see you, everyone.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, can I keep you for 1 second?